so much. Thank you. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, this is Marion speaking. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I'm not sure who you can see in the room exactly because we're having a bit of trouble with the camera. But we'd like to welcome you for this session.
Yeah.
So if you allow me to give a brief introduction of yourself. I don't know how well I will do that considering your curriculum. But Matthew is what we call a world-class truther. Somebody who's called the advisor behind the advisors. You're also the CEO of 311, and you're often featured in global media, BBC, Bloomberg, CNBC, and you advise through your consultancy and then with prime ministers, ministers of G7, G20, etc., so on and so forth. And now you and I happen to meet each other during the PNSP event, customer event that actually took place in Tarragona, where we are sitting right now. And so we had, I had the pleasure to attend at least your futuristic vision around AI. And the idea of this half an hour was that we tap your brain. As sitting here with the Senior Vice President for Global Governmental Affairs, you also have the Vice President for North America, and the rest of the GA team for the European markets. And so we would like to tap your brains, your expertise, and your futuristic view on our intelligence, our artificial intelligence, and how eventually that tool and those trends can help us to be more efficient at the job we do and the work we do. That's a very ambitious agenda for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So this is the set setting, and I will leave it to you, Matthew. I'll hand back over to you.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, Marianne. That's it. Good to see you all again. That's it. You're slightly squashed. That's it. You're looking shorter than usual. So what I'll do is, if it's all right with you, I'll crack into a summary of artificial intelligence, just so you have a bit more of an understanding of the power behind some of the tools that you have access to. We can have a quick chat about privacy, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what you can actually do with these tools. So I've got the ETS, SUPD, RED 3 and PPWR regulations lined up. And I suppose basically your challenge could be to see whether or not you could beat me in a time trial to see on some of the tasks that I've put together. Okay, so should we crack on?
Yes, sure.
Okie doke. Right, here we go. Okay, so when we have a look at artificial intelligence that you have access to today, Copilot, which is the Microsoft version of ChatGPT, ChatGPT from OpenAI has a verbal IQ of 155, which puts it in the top 1% of humans for natural language understanding. It also has 1,000 times more general knowledge than every human because it has been trained on everything on the public web. So that's all the research papers, documents, regulations, which it didn't fall over at, Reddit and all sorts of things. So the AI that you have access to either for free or via a Microsoft Enterprise license is frankly insanely powerful. And it's only getting more powerful. Now, from an artificial intelligence perspective, we are moving from AIs that are able to pull patterns out of big data to AIs that increasingly are able to read text, see the world, understand the world to create their own knowledge. And then as artificial intelligence takes one or more sets of knowledge and combines it together, we're starting to see AIs that create their own wisdom. So an AI will say, from this data, I extracted this knowledge, and because I've got two sets of knowledge, now I got this wisdom. So AI is frankly starting to become more like alien intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. Now, from your perspective, you have access to what we call a foundational an artificial intelligence model. So ChatGPT and Copilot are gigantic, multi-trillion parameter AIs. However, while they are good at doing a lot of general things, when you're having a look at, say, corporate affairs, you could do with having a more specialist artificial intelligence. Okay, so this is where, from an ecosystem perspective, we've got large foundational models, but as we fast forward through time, you'll end up with AIs that have been specifically designed for, say, your department, or your use cases and so on and so forth. Those are coming, but really you're looking sort of the next 1 to 2 years. As we look forward to 2028, we see a point in time where we have very basic artificial general intelligence, so AGI. Now, we estimate that an AGI will have an IQ of 1600, and that it will actually have an amount of knowledge that is 1 billion times more, or 1 billion times greater than any human. And then in Sam Altman's sort of own words, he defines artificial general intelligence as an AI that is able to outperform all humans at all economically valuable work. So that is the start of the complete automation of the global services industry. So that's a quick round out of artificial intelligence and the AIs that you have access to today. And there's a lot more, but that's kind of the headline summary. Now, from a policy perspective or corporate affairs perspective, I thought that we could actually try these little use cases. So we're going to summarize a policy. We're going to analyze the tone of different regulations and policies. We're going to get the AI to critique them. So in other words, how could they improve? How could they be improved? What's bad about them? Discover inconsistencies. We're going to then use AI to improve a policy. So this is where you might, in your daily lives, you might read a policy or regulation document and then go back with some recommendations. Okay? We're going to try to determine the cost impact of some of these regulations on your organization. Now, if we don't want the AI to really know who you are or what you're doing from a privacy perspective, we can infer who you are, that sort of stuff. So I'll show you how you don't have to tell the AI all of your secrets in order to get it to do some things. Because that's what your IT department will tell you. They will say, you can't use these AIs because they vacuum up our secrets. So that's for you. That's a conversation for you and your IT department. We're going to then write an executive summary of these different regulations and policies. We're going to translate it into a different language because you're a global company. We're going to do some analysis of the authors and a bit of a SWOT. So when you are sitting, the idea behind this is when you sit around the table with the authors of these documents discussing some changes that you might like to make, this tool will give you some competitive intelligence on them, who they are, what makes them tick, how you might be able to negotiate with them to get what you prefer. Maybe not what you want, but maybe what you prefer. And then we're going to use the AIs to find policy overlaps and sweet spots. Now, from my perspective, I am not a lawyer, I'm not a policymaker, so you will get a lot more value out of these tools because you will know what you're hunting for and what you're trying to get from them. Okay, so this is an example. So we have 18 minutes left, so let's get going. Now, there are two sort of artificial intelligences that I think are the most interesting of all of them. You've got ChatGPT and you have Claude from a company called Anthropic. Now, Claude is better than ChatGPT in a lot of the natural language benchmarks. It's also backed by Google and Amazon. So you can kind of use any of these large language models that you want, but from a corporate perspective, you'll have your favorites. But I'm going to use Claude for the moment. Now, what I've got here, as you can see, is I've got my documents. So let's have a go with PPWR first. So I dragged the PPWR final text into Claude. There you go. Yep. What was that? Yeah. So what I've done is I've simply dragged a PDF of the regulation that we care about into Claude, and you can see it. You can see it here. Okay. But now I can query it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get Claude to summarize it. Summarize this policy, and I can get it to summarize it in a sentence, a paragraph, bullet points, all that kind of stuff. Summarize this policy in short form bullet points. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm recording this as well, so I'll send you the video because then you can see it in a bit bigger. But so now it's taken its time. It'll have a little thing. Normally it's faster, but I think my network's running slower today, which is always typical. So what Claude is now doing is Claude is now reading the entire document, and eventually, when it feels like it, it's going to create a summary. It was working a lot faster earlier. Come on, Claude. Might fire Claude. Right, let's do this with... We can put them against each other as well. Here we go. So Claude is now figuring things out. So here we go. So it says the key points of the proposed regulations on packaging and packaging waste are, it sets sustainability requirements for packaging related to recyclability, compostability, minimization, hazardous substances, recycled content, etc. So all this sort of stuff is probably what you know already. It sets targets for reducing packaging waste, etc. But you can see here, within the space of a minute, which was slow for Claude, we've got sort of quite a quick summary of PPWR. Now what I can do is I can say analyze the tone of the policy in human terms. Now, you might want to analyze the tone of a policy because analyzing the tone of a policy sometimes helps you get a better understanding of the general purpose of the document. The people behind the document, if it's a warm tone, if it's a positive tone, or whatever it happens to be. And Claude does actually seem to be having a little bit of a break at the moment, which will be a bit annoying since we're on the clock. Come on, Claude. Right. Analyze the tone of the document. I'll get ChatGPT basically to do it as well. Right, here we go. Right, so Claude, while I was talking to ChatGPT, it says the tone of the policy can be characterized as assertive, comprehensive, progressive, environmentally focused. So now you're starting to get an idea of some of the general directions of travel, basically, of the people who put these things together. Now I can say critique the document from the perspective of, a sustainability advocate. So what you can do is you can be very, very detailed with what you want these models to do, and from a critiquing perspective, you might want to find something particular. But I'm just getting the AI to critique the policy from the point of a sustainability advocate. And this is sort of where, again, it's going to take its time. But this is where, when you use artificial intelligence to critique a document, it will then come up saying, well, this document, these are the bad points within the document. This is where the document is weak. And you can then start using that to make improvements. So for example, you could then, I'm running faster than the AI. You could then start saying, right, if these are the negative points that Claude has pulled out of this document, how would you improve it? Claude is definitely having a slow day. Right, so here we go. So Claude has critiqued the document, and it says the positive aspects are regulation sets binding targets, the introduction of requirements for packaging design such as recyclability, etc., can help promote a circular economy. But areas for improvement, which is here, so areas of improvement are the targets for reducing packaging waste per capita could be more ambitious. The regulation could go further in promoting reusable packaging systems. While the regulation sets minimum requirements for extended producer responsibility schemes, it could be strengthened, etc., etc. So you can see how very quickly we can do things. So now we can do discover inconsistencies, if I can spell inconsistencies, which I can't. Because as we saw with PPWR, there were inconsistencies with the supply side and the demand side. Okay. In fact, Claude is now telling me I've got a messaging limit. That's it, which is naughty of it because I haven't been using it much today. So what Claude is now doing is Claude is now having a look at the legal document from a variety of different perspectives to try to find inconsistencies within the document. So things that don't align or add up. And again, it's taking its time. And what I might do is I might start, so here we go. So after carefully reviewing the proposed regulation, I didn't identify any major inconsistencies. It appears well structured and coherent. However, there are a few areas where the regulation could potentially conflict or diverge from other EU policies and initiatives. And then it gives you some examples. The provisions on compostable packaging may not fully align with the EU's circular economy action plan. Okay, so you can see basically what we're sort of doing here. Really quickly in the space of actually about 5 to 7 minutes with Claude taking its time. We're starting to extract quite a lot of information. Now what we could do is I can say write an executive summary of the regulation and then translate it into Spanish. And then and give a Spanish translation. Okay. So say for example, the regulation has just come out. The bosses are on your heels, wanting to know what the regulation's impact is for the business. Then really quite quickly, you can use artificial intelligence to produce a summary in any way that you like, with any focus. So you could say, write an executive summary that's a paragraph long, write an executive summary that focuses on the business impact or the economic or environmental impact. So you really can tweak these in any way that you see fit to get a sort of more personalized version for whatever it is you're up to. So here we go. Okay, so the executive summary, the proposed PPWR regulation sets out comprehensive framework to address the environmental challenges posed by packaging waste in the EU. So this is something that you could quite literally copy and paste, put it into check it, obviously, checking is important, put it into an email and then send it to whoever you want to. And within 5 minutes of a new policy being released, a lot of other people within the organization can have a very quick summary of what it is. And then, of course, it's translated it all into Spanish as well. So if you want to communicate this summary or this output or whatever it is you're doing in a different language, Because you have global teams, then you can do that as well. So you can see it's now created the full Spanish version as well of the article. Now what we can do, and I might end up switching to ChatGPT for the last ones because Claude, it says I've got 5 messages remaining, which is naughty of it. But now what I can do is identify the authors of the document. So we've summarized the document, we've critiqued the document, we found areas that we could improve, and we've created some summaries. Now we might want to understand more about the people that we would be sitting across the table from if we were going to have a conversation about modifications. Yeah. A quick biographic summary on 3 of them. Okay. Now, one of the interesting things, so when I did this earlier because I was just running it, I actually found that the vast majority of the authors for this document are actually from Linklaters. And the system was able to pull up their biographies. It was able to tell you which part of Linklaters these guys were actually in. And so with this is really where now what we're trying to do is get some quite deep competitive intelligence on the authors of the policy so that we can have a, should we say, more informed conversation and we understand more about their personal agendas, biases, or whatever it is that we care about. Okay, so yeah. So I should have actually put bullet forms or bullet points because it's pulled up the European Commission as the author. So you don't have to be particularly accurate with these AIs either. You can be quite sloppy in your language like I've been, like tell me the people. So that's going to do that. So you've got 5 minutes left and we will manage to do the rest in 5 minutes. If Claude's having a break again. Come on. Right. Because one of the sort of most interesting things I think to do with these AIs is you can actually look for sweet spots. Right, there we go. So, right. I might move on from the people, I'll say it since we're time constrained, but it does actually pull up the actual authors. So I use ChatGPT. Give me a bullet point list of the human authors of the regulation with biographies. So we'll see if ChatGPT is behaving itself today. So, oddly enough, these AIs do take on human quirks, which is a conversation for another time. So, here we go. Yeah, ChatGPT is messing about as well. But anyway, they do actually tell you who the authors are eventually. Now, what we can do is we're going to we'll take these 2 files. So we've got the RED 3 and the SUPD regulation, and find policy overlaps between these 2 documents and sweet spots for a chemicals company. So this is where, because at the moment we're only scratching the surface of what these can do, but this, provided Claude doesn't mess me about again, this is where it starts getting much more powerful, because you can start putting in multiple regulations and multiple policy documents and start saying to the artificial intelligence, I'm interested in tax breaks for a new chemicals plant that manufactures X, plastics maybe. Tell me where the sweet spots are. And the AI will look at all of the documents you've put in and will say, these are the sweet spots. And it's just taking its time now. It knows that we're in a rush. That's what it's up to. It'll eventually get there. But once you understand what the sweet spots are, then you can actually, again, do a deeper dive. So here we go. Based on my analysis, there are a few key policy overlaps and potential sweet spots for a chemicals company across the two documents. Bearing in mind that I kind of just selected the documents a little bit at random, RED 3 and SUPD. So the sweet spots are restrictions on hazardous substances in packaging. The proposed packaging and packaging waste regulation aims to minimize the presence of substances of concern in packaging materials. It maintains existing heavy metal concentration limits and allows for restricting additional substances that negatively impact the circularity of packaging. This aligns with the Single-Use Plastic Directive's objective to prevent and reduce the impact of certain plastic products in the environment. Now, from your perspective, if you see policy overlaps, let's say, for example, that both of these policies talk about toxic metals, then when it comes to product research and development, you might start prompting the research and development teams to avoid any toxic metals in anything. So similarly, and then increasing recycled content. So sweet spots, the proposed regulation sets mandatory targets. A chemicals company could capitalize on this by investing in and supplying high quality recycled plastics suitable for food grade packaging applications. So what we have, we've done it very quickly and the AIs have been messing about a bit, but we've identified overlaps and sweet spots. And then what I could say is, I could then start to try to get the AI to estimate the costs of implementing these regulations to the organization. But obviously, the more financial details I have, the better. And I could say, give me an estimate based on we'll lowball revenues. Revenue based on a $30 billion revenue chemicals company with a traditional footprint of how much implementing these regulations might cost. Give a best guess estimate. Okay. So what I've said is, give me an estimate for a chemicals company of kind of this size, this shape, all that sort of stuff. And you can get into a lot more detail. Give me an estimate how much it might cost to implement these policies. And what it'll do is it will have a look at all of the information that it's ingested on businesses, as well as transformation and economics and costs and everything else, and start creating a bit of a summary. But obviously, the more accurate the information that you put into it about your operations, the better its estimates are going to get. So it'll take its time again because it's thinking about maths now. With 2 minutes over, that's Claude's fault because Claude has been slow. But it'll come up with it in a minute. And when it comes up, it'll eventually do it. When it comes up with it, you'll have seen in the past 18 minutes how even with a slow artificial intelligence and with somebody who doesn't really know what he's asking it, you are able to improve productivity massively. So here we go. So the calculation Claude's estimate of implementing these policies within an organization of about $30 billion of revenue, it estimates that the cost over 5 years would be about $1.5 to $3 billion. Now, that's going to be wrong because we just used general numbers and we did it very quickly. But you can see how if you had a set of new regulations come out this morning and the bosses said, you know, we understand you haven't had time to read them all and digest them all and everything else, but nevertheless, I've got a press meeting later today. I would like to have an idea of what these regulations are, roughly how much we might be on the hook for. Is it a good thing, bad thing? Where might we make improvements? You can do it very, very quickly. And there we go.
Thank you, Matthew. This was impressive. Very job in writing of it in such a short amount of time. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have time for questions, technically.
Yeah.
We have agenda, but we can keep in touch with the rest of the team and send us the video. Did you record this, Matthew?
Yeah, so I'll send you the video, and then you can sort of muse through it and laugh at how slow the AI's been. Yeah.
No, thanks a lot. Very much appreciate your time again, and we keep in touch.
You're welcome. Take care. All the best. Ta-da. Bye-bye.